Hello students, I am Sonali Kelkar from City International School, and today we are going to do certain biology activities which are given in your book. So let's start with the activities. Let's take the first activity, that is the aim of the activity is to show that chlorophyll is essential for photosynthesis, right? So let's first take the brief description of the procedure, observation and inference, then we will go in detail. The procedure says that in this activity what we have to take variegated leaf plant, that is money plant, in the dark for 3 days and in sunlight for few 6 hours. For few hours, that is 6 hours. Then it asks to treat it with boiling alcohol and iodine solution. In the observation, you will find that only the green color part of the leaf got the blue color and with the iodine solution, while the white portion of the money plant leaf did not get the blue color. Now what is variegated leaf? Variegated, if you can see, this is the plant, this is the leaf which is called variegated leaf, where you can see a certain part of the leaf is green in color and certain parts are creamish in color, right? So we call these as variegated leaf. So a certain part of the leaf can produce chlorophyll, but and the other parts, they cannot produce chlorophyll, that is why they are not green in color. So we need to take these type of leaves. Okay, this is a money plant leaf that we have taken in this experiment. Inference: only the green part of the leaf photosynthesize and make starch. So at the end of the experiment we will come to know that the green part does the photosynthesis, but the rest of the part cannot do the photosynthesis. So let's start with the experiment. Now let's start with the detailed explanation of the experiment. We know the experiment aim, that is chlorophyll is essential for photosynthesis. Okay, now what is a byproduct of photosynthesis, children? The byproduct of photosynthesis is starch. That means with the process of photosynthesis, the starch is produced in the plant and it is being stored in a different parts of the plant. To start with the experiment, we have to do the destarch of plant. Now what do we mean by destarch of plant? Destarch of plant means to remove the starch in the plant wherever it is being stored, right? We know that in plant the starch is also stored in leaves, right? So initially we want to remove all the starch which is stored in the leaf, because we want to identify whether the green part of the variegated leaf is producing starch or not. Okay, so destarch plant is one whose leaves are free from starch. Now once we are confirmed that the leaves are free from starch by keeping the plant for about 3 days. Okay, here you have to write 3 days. Okay, so in this process the whole starch of the plant will get consumed. Then you again have to keep the plant for about 6 hours in the sunlight so that the leaves can start making the glucose, and that glucose will start forming in a form of a starch, right? That's glucose will store in a form of a starch. Then we are going to pluck the leaf from that plant, because I want that the starch which has been produced by the leaf shouldn't be given away to other parts of the plant. It should be stuck to the leaves only, right? So that the starch remains localized to the green area only, right? Then we are going to take the leaf and we are going to trace the leaf, right? Here you can see they have taken the leaf and you have to trace the leaf first and mark the green part of the leaves. Why we are going to do so, that I am going to explain you soon. Now once you have plucked the leaf, we are going to first boil the leaf in a water. Why we are boiling it in the water? you have to listen to me very carefully why we are boiling this leaf in water, so that the cells become dead. Once the cell is dead, the metabolic activities of the cell will be stopped. That means the starch won't be consumed by the cell, right? Metabolic activities stop, and we are ensuring that the starch which is produced in the process of photosynthesis is still there in the leaf. Once you boil the leaf, the cell get dead, okay? The cell wall breaks, the chloroplast will also break. Then you have to take the leaf in a methylated solution, or you can say ethanol, right? If you are taking in an ethanol, you cannot directly heat this container which is having ethanol, because ethanol which catch fire. Okay, so you are going to take a water bath of it. That means you are going to take a beaker, you are going to put ethanol in it, then leaf in it, and then you are going to take another beaker with water, and you have to start boiling this methanol solution or ethanol solution, right? Once you boil the ethanol solution, the color of the leaf will get changed, okay? It will become almost colorless. It won't be a green in color anymore. That is the reason we have traced that leaf first, and we have traced the green part of the leaf first, right? And what is the next reason why we are boiling the leaf in ethanol? The next reason is the chlorophyll will get dissolved. Chlorophyll will come out from the chloroplast. It will get released and it will get spread in the leaf, right? Then what we have to do, we have to take the leaf and we have to put it in a petri dish. On that leaf we are going to put some iodine solution. As soon as you put iodine solution, what you will find that the part of the green which was initially green in color, that is showing a change over here. There is a change in the color. The color has become bluish black, and the rest of the part of the leaf where there was no chlorophyll present, it is still having the same color. So this bluish black color is a test for the starch. It means that the green pigment chlorophyll has synthesized starch in the process of photosynthesis. Children, let's take the next activity. And the aim of this activity is to show that carbon dioxide is necessary for photosynthesis. Again, here also we have to take a destarch plant. That means you have to keep this plant for 3 days in a dark room, so that whatever starch which has been produced in the plant is completely utilized by it. Okay, and then what we have to do, we have to take two potted plants, and of course you have to destarch these two potted plants, and then in one plant, both the plants you have to keep under a bell jar, and you have to make sure that the bell jar is completely sealed. Over here you have to put a Vaseline so that you make sure the bell jar is completely sealed, right? In one bell jar, as you can see, there is a dish over here. We have taken KOH, potassium hydroxide, and you can also take NaOH here, because this KOH or NaOH will absorb carbon dioxide. The complete reaction, I think it's given over here. Yes, KOH, carbon dioxide, it forms K2CO3, potassium dicarbonate, and water, so that the carbon dioxide which was present initially in the bell jar is completely absorbed by this dish, okay, by the chemical. In this dish we have kept a chemical, right? And the other plant, this one is a controlled experiment. We call it controlled experiment. Why? Because all the necessary things, which that is your carbon dioxide, sunlight, uh, and water. Every necessary things, which is everything which is necessary for photosynthesis is available in the in that controlled plant, right? And what we will observe after some time, that we are going to pluck one leaf from this plant, and we are going to pluck one leaf from this plant, and we are going to do again the starch experiment. And when you do a starch experiment, when you put iodine solution, okay, in the control plant, you will see this leaf will show a positive starch test. That means that iodine solution will turn into bluish black because of the presence of starch in this leaf. But here in the plant where we have kept a petri dish with KOH, here we will see there won't be any presence of starch. So my starch experiment is not coming well over here. It's showing a negative sign. That means the starch is not produced when I put iodine solution. This shows that carbon dioxide is very essential for the formation of starch. Coming to the next experiment, this is the aim of this experiment is enzymatic action of saliva on starch. So what we have to take, let's go through the brief procedure first. Okay, to do this activity, we are supposed to take a starch solution in the test tube, and then you have to put some saliva into it. And we know that saliva has which enzyme? Amylase, right? Amylase enzyme, which will definitely going to digest the starch, and it is going to turn it into a sugar, right? But the thing is, the iodine solution, when I put iodine solution, I won't able to see any kind of change, because my iodine solution won't react with the simple sugar, right? So that is why there won't be any change in the color. Over here we have shown you how starch is reacted with iodine, and it is showing bluish black color. But this is the initial test tube. But when I put a saliva and when I do the experiment, you won't find this bluish black color. Okay, because there is no starch. The starch has been completely digested by the enzyme, that is salivary amylase, and the sugar is formed. Now next experiment, the aim of this experiment is to show that carbon dioxide is produced during respiration. So when you exhale air, when you exhale out the air, that air will have carbon dioxide, and we have to check whether that air has carbon dioxide or not. So let's start with the experiment. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to take a lime water. Okay, here there is a rubber tube, and this rubber tube is connected to syringe, and this syringe, when you press it, you will find the air going through this lime water, but there isn't any change in the color of lime water, right? There's a little bit of air present in the syringe, but probably it doesn't have enough carbon dioxide, so you won't see change in the color of lime water, right? We know the lime water is KaOH whole twice, clear? So but when you do the same experiment, when you blow the exhale air through your mouth, you will find that the lime water has turned milky. Okay, why it has turned milky? Because there is a carbon dioxide in the exhale air which will react with lime water, and calcium carbonate is formed, which is nothing but insoluble precipitate. And because of this calcium carbonate only, you will find that color of that solution has turned milky here. So what is the inference? This experiment demonstrates that our lungs exhales carbon dioxide. Now let us do the next experiment. This is 6.5 experiment from your textbook. The aim of this experiment is the air produced by yeast on sugar solution of fruit is carbon dioxide. Okay. This one is this you can remember if you know that when you put yeast in sugar solution or fruit solution, what do we get? We usually get wine, right? Alcohol. So we have to see and check whether the air produces carbon dioxide or not. So again, what you have to do, you have to take some sugar solution, or you can take any fruit solution. You can take grape juice, you can take sugarcane juice, right? And you have to put yeast in it, right? Then the air taken through the test tube makes lime water milky. Okay, now here is the yeast and a sugar solution. You can see in this experiment over here in the test tube, right? And in this test tube is fitted with cork, and this cork has two holes. One is in one hole we have put a thistle funnel. Clear? Through this thistle funnel you are going to put some yeast, and then this is a delivery tube. We call this type of tubes are known as delivery tube, right? Okay, and there is a test tube, and in the test tube of course we have taken calcium hydroxide, and when we pass carbon dioxide, what will happen? Again, the lime water will turn into milky, and this is due to the formation of calcium carbonate. Okay, and this shows that there is a gas, carbon dioxide, which is released during this process, right? And this process is known as fermentation. We usually do this process with when we make bread, naan, or I think even we use in dosas and dhoklas. So that's why they become very fluffy, because of the release of carbon dioxide gas. Let's take the important questions here, children. Write the balanced chemical equation for the process of photosynthesis. When do the desert plant takes up carbon dioxide and perform photosynthesis? Here you have to write the photosynthesis, the balanced chemical equation. Carbon dioxide, we know that the photosynthesis is a process which takes place in presence of carbon dioxide, water. Of course, sunlight is there, and chlorophyll, which is very important, green pigment. Without that, this is not possible. So the carbon dioxide and water react together in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, and sugar is formed. This is very simple sugar, that is glucose, C6H12O6. Water and oxygen is also formed. Make sure that when you are writing an equation, it has to be balanced. It has to be a balanced equation, right? So this is a complete balanced equation. Then the next part, when do the desert plant takes up carbon dioxide? Usually the desert plants, we know that to avoid transpiration, to avoid the loss of water by transpiration, the stomata of the desert plant remains closed, right, during the daytime. Okay, so during night they get open, they takes in carbon dioxide, okay, and they store this carbon dioxide until the sun comes out, right? And then in the form of then in the presence of sunlight, carbon dioxide reacts with water and produce glucose. Coming to the next question, the single cell organism diffusion is sufficient to meet all the requirement of food, exchanges of gases or removal of waste, but is not in case of multicellular organism. Explain the reason for this difference. Okay, now if we take example of single cell organism, let's draw amoeba over here, right? If you see the amoeba over here, complete body surface is exposed to environment, right? So there can be a diffusion of gases can come in, something can go out, right? Diffusion of gases takes place because the whole membrane of the body is exposed to the environment. But in case of multicellular organism, there are trillions of cells and they are not exposed to the environment, right? So that is why diffusion is not sufficient to meet the case of multicellular organism. We need something special, something really advanced mechanism to remove the waste of our body. Clear? So you can go through the answer and write all the answers in your notebook, because these all are important. This has been um, taken from different exams, different board exams, right? So it will be better if you write down in your copy. Name the acids present in the following: tomato, vinegar and tamarind. In tomatoes, oxalic acid is present, vinegar, citric acid is present. In it shouldn't be citric acid, it should be acetic acid. Acetic acid. And in tamarind, tartric acid is present. Okay. Now coming to the next question, state the role of the following in human digestive system. Digestive enzyme, what is the role of digestive enzyme? What is a role of hydrochloric acid, that is HCl, and what is the role of villi? Now let's do the digestive enzyme first. Then we know that food is very complex. It is very complicated, very complex compound. All the carbohydrates, proteins and fats that we consume, it's not a simple compound that cannot be used easily by our cells. Our cells are very tiny, so they need very simple molecules so that they can consume it, digest it and get energy by it, and or we can say it can utilize it, right? So food is first broken down into small or the simpler molecule so that it can be absorbed into the bloodstream, and definitely ultimately eventually it will absorb by the cells. However, the physical breakdown of food is not enough. What do we mean? What do you mean by physical breakdown? Physical breakdown means when you chew food by your mouth and when it is churned in the stomach, that much is not enough, right? Enzymes are hence needed for the chemical breakdown of food and speeding up the digestive process. So, okay, the products of digestion can hence be small enough to be absorbed. Now let's do the hydrochloric acid. We know that hydrochloric acid very important to kill germs. First of all, it is important to kill germs which might have entered in the system through food. Again, it creates the acidic medium. Now this acidic medium is very important for the pepsin to act on food, okay, to break down proteins. Next is villi. Villi are finger-like projection in the small intestine. It is a projection like this, finger-like projection, and with the shape you can make out that these finger-like projection is very important to increase the surface area. Now why it is so important to increase the surface area? Because it will help in the absorption of digested food. Okay, so the villi are, again, they are richly supplied with blood vessels. In the villi over here there are blood vessels, right? There are veins and there are arteries. So arteries I can show you with the help of blue color. Then there are lacteals vessels. These lacteal vessels, these absorb fat, or you can say lipids, and rest of the things, that is rest of the vitamins, minerals, glucose, amino acids, that will be absorbed by the veins and arteries, okay, over here. Or you can say these are the capillaries, okay, and this can absorb the rest of the thing other than the fat. The fats and lipids will go to the lacteal vessels, and these lacteal vessels ultimately pour the fluid into lymphatic vessels. So lymphatic vessel will have the lipids, and the rest of the blood vessels in the bloodstream, okay, the blood vessels which are arising from the intestine, right, in that blood vessel we are talking about, right, that will have carbon dioxide, sorry, that will have vitamins, minerals, amino acids. Now definitely these blood vessels will help to absorb digestive food in the blood stream. uh, Next question, why do herbivores have longer small intestine than carnivores? Very important question is this. Now herbivores, the digestion of cellulose, we know that herbivores have to digest cellulose, so that is why it is very important to have a long intestine. And this is why, because they eat grass, and grass has a maximum amount of cellulose. We know that cellulose is making cell wall in plants, isn't it? Cellulose makes cell wall in plant. So plants are directly eaten by the animals. They don't cook their food like us. So they eat cellulose directly. And this cellulose, this in fact in our body, it acts like a fiber in our body. It is very important. The fiber content of the food is very important for the proper functioning of our digestive system. Okay, so that is why the animals have a longer intestine as compared to human beings. In mammals and birds, why it is necessary to separate oxygen and deoxygenated blood? Sorry, oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood. In mammals and in birds, we are warm-blooded animals. That means we have to control our body temperature, right? Our body temperature doesn't fluctuate according to the surrounding. It remains 37 degrees Celsius. That's it. Okay. Okay. Even if you go to Antarctica or you go to Tanzania, wherever you go, your body temperature will always remain 37 degrees Celsius. That is the moderate body temperature, right? So this means we need to control our body temperature, and for that we have to do a lot of metabolic activities, and this metabolic activity in fact is done by enzymes, right? And uh, these enzymes will definitely work properly at a appropriate temperature. They will die if we increase the temperature, or if we decrease the temperature, their work efficiency will definitely fluctuate. And because of that, the birds and animals require optimum oxidation of glucose. We need to break our glucose. We need a lot of energy to maintain our body temperature, and that is why our oxygenated and deoxygenated blood is separated. It flows in different blood vessels. They are not mixed together anywhere in our body. Now let's take the diagrams, children. Here you have to draw a neat diagram of excretory system of human being and label on it the left kidney and urinary bladder. Okay, here if you see the diagram over here, why they have told you to mark left kidney, because right kidney is, this is your right kidney and this is your left kidney. Your right kidney, your right is always correspond to your right hand, right? Here why? Because when we keep it in front of us, we will find that the right and the left position of the kidney is overlapping the right and the left position of our own kidney, right? Just because it is in front of you, you have to mark it like you have to mark it in a corresponding manner, right? Here this is the left kidney, so never mark right kidney in the exam. Be careful what they have told you to mark, right kidney to left kidney, so you have to mark the left kidney, not the right one. Okay, and then urinary bladder. So you can take out the diagram from your book, which is quite simpler, and you can draw the diagram and practice this diagram. These diagrams are important diagrams which can come from this chapter. Then draw a diagram of human respiratory system and label on it diaphragm and larynx. Okay, here they have shown you the diaphragm. Diaphragm is the structure which is dividing your body. The thoracic part of this is the thoracic part of your body, and below the diaphragm is abdomen, right? And of course, this diaphragm plays a very important role for the intake of air and for the exhalation of air, inhalation and exhalation of air. The second part that you have to mark is a larynx. We know that larynx is a voice box. It is in front of your neck. Okay, so this will be a larynx. This you have to mark it as larynx. So this is all done. Coming to the next diagram, draw a diagram of the front view of heart, human heart, and label any 6 parts, including at least two that are concerned with arterial blood supply to the heart muscles. Okay, then here we have to go with the answer. Arterial blood supply to the heart muscles. So actually you don't have this arterial blood supply to the heart muscle. These are coronary arteries. The arteries which supply blood to the heart muscles are known as coronary artery, right? So this is the front view of the heart. This is let's start with the upper part of the heart. This is right atrium. This is the first thing that you have to mark, right atrium. Okay, then this is the left atrium, and coming to the right ventricle, okay, and the left ventricle. This is the fourth one. The left ventricle is the thickest one. You can see the thickness of the left ventricle. It is the thickest part. Okay, and why it is the thickest part? Because when it squeeze, when there is a systole, we can call it as ventral systole, ventricle systole, then the blood from the left ventricle goes to aorta. Okay, from here it goes to aorta, and from aorta it is supplied to the whole body, right? So that is why more amount of pressure is required on this part of the heart. Now you can see the different arteries and vein attached to it. A for aorta, aorta is artery. A for away, it is taking blood away from heart. Then pulmonary artery, aorta has oxygenated blood. Okay, pulmonary artery is taking blood to the lungs, and it has deoxygenated blood. That means it has more amount of carbon dioxide. It doesn't mean that deoxygenated blood has all carbon dioxide. No, it is a myth. It has oxygen, but the amount of carbon dioxide is more as compared to oxygen. Okay, so pulmonary artery takes blood to the lungs, where there will be exchange of gases, and from pulmonary vein, from pulmonary vein, the oxygenated blood is coming inside the left atrium. Okay, so this is a pulmonary vein. Pulmonary vein is the only vein which has oxygenated blood, and pulmonary artery is the only artery which has deoxygenated blood. Okay, then we have tricuspid valve. This is at the aperture of the right atrium and the right ventricle. So we call it as a tricuspid valve or atrioventral valve. But you have tricuspid valve. Now this is bicuspid valve, which is present at the aperture of left atrium and left ventricle. Okay, so once the blood is passes from your atrium, right and left atrium, to the right and left ventricle, these valves get closed. Okay, why? Because to avoid backflow of the blood. So these valves get closed, and then there will be a ventricle systole. Systole means contraction. the ventricle, left and right ventricles, they get contract, and blood from there will go out through aorta. From left ventricle it will go out through aorta, from right ventricle it will go to pulmonary artery, and from there it will go to the lungs. Okay, so and there are papillary muscles, we call it chordae tendineae, right? These are the papillary muscles which supports our valves for closing and opening. So this is all about heart. Then there is a detailed structure of digestive system. Here you have to label gallbladder, liver and pancreas. Okay, the diagram depicting human alimentary canal and label on it gallbladder, liver and pancreas. State the roles of liver and pancreas. Name the organ which perform the following function in human. Absorption of digested food. It is a small intestine. That means you have to you don't have to label this, you just have to write the answer for this. Small intestine. Absorption of water takes place in large intestine. Large intestine, it doesn't take a major role in digestion. Okay, no major role, as or we can say that digestion doesn't takes place in large intestine. So this is all about today's topic, children. Practice today's topic, write the answers and questions in your notebook because these all are important.